And what was the overall plan of action for the young lawyers? I mean, sure, there were different things that you did, right?
Well, we had a 13-point program. Okay, so that was our sort of like our constitution.
Okay.
Okay, and we in there we named the different things that we stood for. Okay, one was that we stood for socialism. Okay, that we stood against racial discrimination. That we stood for equality between men and women. That we stood for the independence of Puerto Rico. So among other things, okay, we stood for amazing, right? We're still talking about that today, but we talk about how health and education, okay, should be things that you're guaranteed.
Yes.
That it's a right and not a privilege. Okay, so way back then we had all those things in our 13-point program, and we try to act on all of them. Okay, the way that we acted on the question of Puerto Rican independence, that we organized marches to the United Nations. One march we brought 10,000 people to the United Nations.
Wow.
To demanding the United States to recognize Puerto Rico as an independent nation. That struggle still goes on.
Yes.
But those are the kind of things that after you do the research, after you understand the problem, you can have a plan of action and move on it.
Yes.
I keep repeating that because I think that that's so important.
Yes, no. I definitely think it's important as well. I'm glad that you're emphasizing, because I definitely think it's important. Now you're the Young Lawyers. It's not developed, but you guys adopt a chapter here in Bridgeport. How are other people joining the Young Lawyers? Is there a way that people get join? How does that happen?
At that time,
yes.
Yeah, we had a procedure that they had to follow. One of the things was they had to be free of drugs. Okay, no drugs. One of the things that one of the rules in the Young Lawyers was that no drugs were allowed.
Yeah.
To be used, and that the people that joined had to give everything to the cause. That it was the cause that was important, not the individual. We always stress the general over the specific. Okay, yes. We say it's not you that's important. It's the movement that we are pushing. That's what's important. So, not individualism, but community.
Yes. And how after you got started with the Young Lawyers here in Bridgeport, how long would you say that it took before people that mattered paid attention?
Well, in terms of people that matter, who are you referring to? Because
the people that can make the changes that we wanted to make. And when I say we, I mean Puerto Ricans. The changes that you were fighting for, the people, the leaders in the community who could make those changes. How long did it take before they took notice of what was happening?
In some instances, it happened after the Young Lawyers were out of existence.
Okay.
Like for example, when I mentioned the lead paint. Okay, and breakfast programs. Okay. In some others, okay, I don't know that the people that matter ever paid much attention. If we're saying that the people that matter are people within our community,
yes,
I think that the leadership in our community was almost always against us. Okay, because they felt threatened.
Yes.
Okay, and the people that were in power didn't give a damn. Okay.
Yeah.
So everything had to sort of be forced upon them. So one of the struggles that we took up was at that time, which was a real problem in the community, was a question of high rents.
Yes.
And abuses by landlords at the time. And we started rent strikes, okay? And the reason why we did that was because there had been in Bridgeport, under a socialist mayor, okay, a rent control board.
Okay.
And landlords couldn't just go and raise the rent, because if you were a tenant and they raise your rent, you could go to the board and file a complaint. And a lot of times, you would win, and the landlord could not impose raising the rent. As a matter of fact, they could even order the landlord to lower the rent. Okay?
Wow.
But when we came along, okay, when especially when Puerto Ricans started to come to Bridgeport, they abolished the rent control board.
Okay.
Okay. So the problem began to build.
Yes.
Okay. By the time of the young lords, it was kind of a crisis. Okay. So we started this rent strikes, and we had a rent strike that lasted 5 months, and the police was called in to break the strike. Okay. And they joined with the landlords to break the strike. Okay. And that's one of my arrests when that happened.
Yeah.
But there was a push to build housing because there was a lack of affordable housing. There still is.
Yeah.
Okay. But today, it's not just people like the young lords that are talking about, the need for affordable housing. Now it's even some of the owners of businesses that are saying, hey, my employees can't find an affordable place to live in.
Yeah.
And it's still an issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But that's another issue, that even though they recognize part of it then, it's still with us today.
Yes.
Something that still needs to be addressed.
So you said that was one of your arrests. How many times were you arrested?
Well, that I can remember about 5 times, 5 different times. Always in civil rights for civil rights disobedience.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah. No, you should.
Proud of my record.
I want to go to the audience. Any questions?
I was gonna say, speaking of arrest, your daughter, Carolyn, she wants you to talk about the kind of sacrifice and courage it takes to create change. He was arrested and threatened and risked a lot. I lived through that and learned from him. So she also added a lot more comments.
So she wants him to talk about what?
Pretty much the sacrifice that you took in this struggle.
So maybe we could talk a little bit about sacrifices and struggles.
Well, like everything else in life, there is no progress unless there's struggle, and there's no struggle unless there is sacrifice.
Yes.
And we're talking about personal and collective sacrifice here. Okay, one of the sacrifices is that you're in constant danger. That you could be attacked by different hate groups and people of different ideologies, and then that your family can be threatened. You receive letters, hate mail, hate calls. At that particular time, the police, saw us as enemy number one.
Yeah. Okay.
As a matter of fact, Chief of Police once said that I was the most dangerous person in the state of Connecticut. Now, do I look that dangerous to you? Armed and dangerous, the way they put it. Never carried a gun.
Yeah,
but that was the extremes that they would go to, to paint us in a certain way so that people would attack us. Okay. Yes. The other sacrifice is that, your family. Okay. Your family, your earning potential.
Yes.
Okay. Your ability to get appointed to different boards or to get a high paying job. Okay, you give all that up. You know, the moment that you become a militant organizer or a militant fighter.
Yes.
Okay, all of those things are given up. Of course, your health, because you're running from place to place and you really don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, the family life is one of the things, and Carolyn is the one that called that in, right? I remember when I got arrested at the rent strike on East Main Street, she was across the street because she used to get out of school. This is on East Main Street.
Yes.
and Nichols.
Okay.
Right on that corner. And the office of the legal services office was there. And she used to get out of school and she used to go to the legal services office. They were friends of mine, the lawyers.
Yeah.
And she would, spend an hour or two there, and then I would pick her up and take her home. Okay.
Yeah.
On the day that I was arrested, of course, I wasn't given a chance to.
Yeah.
And Carolyn was forgotten. She didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, they come and they put me in the car and they take me away. And she had to be taken home by some people that knew me.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think about that now, and I think about something bad could have happened to her. Okay, and it was all because I was involved in this struggle.
Yes.
Okay, and that's one of the sacrifices that you pay. I don't think it affected her that much, but it could have.
No, definitely.
It could have, and it's a risk that I would think about more.
If you could go back and
if I could go back.
Now going back to that time, and talking about family a little bit. Carolyn is your daughter. Do you have any other children?
No, just her.
So just Carolyn.
Yeah.
So Carolyn, about how old were you when you had Carolyn?
I was 6. I was getting hard. I was about. Let's say she was born in '66. So 30, 20, 23, about 28.
28 when you had Carolyn?
25, 28.
And how was that feeling, the initial feeling?
Oh, it's like, it's magic. It's, I tell you a funny story though,
Go ahead.
Because I used to be a gambler.
Okay.
I used to gamble.
Yes.
And I went to the different places. Some people call it places of ill repute. Okay, to go to gamble. Shoot the craps and play cards. For money.
Yeah.
And when my wife was going into labor, we took her to the hospital, and she had to stay overnight. Okay, there were no cell phones at that time. Okay, hardly any phones.
Yeah.
And I said, how do I spend all this time waiting for them to let me know, whether she has given birth or not, So I went to this house to gamble, right? And then I made a call from that house to the hospital, and they told me that the baby had been born. Okay.
Yeah.
So I asked a friend of mine who was there also to drive me to the hospital.
Yes.
So when I drove to the hospital, and they went to show me the baby. Okay. They had I forgot what it was, but it's something like an ugly looking doll, and I think they were, playing a joke.
Yeah.
Okay. And my friend looks to me and he says, "Oh, that milkman was something else." And we just busted out laughing. And then they showed me Carolyn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I remember that she had a whole bunch of hair, like I never seen a baby with so much hair. Yeah.
Yeah. And how was, I mean, obviously the first probably 5 to 10 years you were involved in young lords and everything as she's growing up, correct? But how was it? How was it raising Carolyn? What kind of things did you as a father make sure that you taught Carolyn?
Oh yeah, she was exposed to everything. And
Okay.
Matter of fact, at that time we used to read the Little Red Book by Mao because we consider ourselves in the Young Lords Marxist, Leninist, Maoist. Okay.
Yeah.
We added the Mao. Okay. Most people consider themselves Marxist, Leninist if you were from the left.
Yes.
Okay. But we consider ourselves Marxist, Leninist, Maoist. Okay. So we believed in what Mao was doing in China.
Yes.
Okay. And the Little Red Book, Carolyn knew how to read that. Okay. When she was about 7.
Yeah.
Okay. And she read it better than some of the young lords.
So, were you were there any things that you wanted to make sure that you taught her growing up as a young lady, as a young Puerto Rican?
Well, we try to teach her, to stand up against racism, to believe in herself as a woman, to value principles over material things.
Yes.
And my wife is, of course, very spiritual, so she also gave her the spiritual, teachings.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But yeah, we and everything that. And by the way, I think that we had a real good relationship, and
Carolyn and you did?
Carolyn and I, and her mother, and she wanted to go learn how to ice skate, and she wanted to compete, and we took an old beat up car and went to, I remember, Ottawa, New Jersey, for Carolyn to compete in ice skating.
Yeah.
And whatever she wanted to do, we did it. And one of the things that she reminds me of at times is that she really got had a lot of benefit by going to the library with me, because every time I used to go to the library a lot.
Yes.
Okay. And to the downtown library.
Yeah.
And every time I went, I used to take her with me, and I would let her stay in the children's room. And she would look at all the books and read and talk to the librarians. She was a talker, even then.
Yeah.
And she really loved it. She said that was a great experience for her.
The library was.
It got her interested in reading.
Yes.
And writing.
Yes.
Which is key.
Definitely.
Key in education.
Definitely.
You got to know how to read.
Definitely.
You hear me, you young guys out there? You got to learn how to read.
Definitely. I want to get into post Young Lawyers. What happens with Willie Matos after that? But before we get into that, I want to see if there's any questions or comments that Reagan wants to read. I'm sure there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm sorry if I skipped a bunch because I kind of have to with time. But Antonio asks, there's 195 countries in the world. Why do you feel Puerto Ricans commonly look towards the USA and Cuba as the only option of a governmental structure?
They look towards what? Toward the USA and Cuba as the only option? Oh. Complicated question, but I don't know that 195 countries look towards only Cuba and the United States.
No.
I guess that what the question is that they look at one or the other.
No.
He's asking, why do you feel Puerto Rico, I think he meant Puerto Rico, looks towards USA and Cuba as option for governmental structure?
He's saying Puerto Ricans look, there's 185 countries, and is that what it was?
95.
195 countries. Why do Puerto Ricans just look at the U.S. or Cuba as governmental structures, as opposed to any other country?
I guess it's because I talked about colonized mentality before. We've been colonized for over 600 years.
Yes.
Okay, 100 and so under the United States. Okay, so you that's the exposure that Puerto Ricans have had in terms of government structure has been, the United States and Cuba now because of the boycott, the relationships between Cuba and the United States are not friendly, and they have been at odds for since the Cuban Revolution. So, and I don't know if the question means that we should look at one or the other. I'm a little bit confused by the question.
Can I just real quick?
He added a comment box.
Okay. Let's see. I'll just. Is it really up there?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Let me see. Let me just find it. A lot of people are commenting. I'm gonna probably. Okay. So the question is, okay. What was it? Okay. There's 195 countries in the world. Why do you feel Puerto Ricans commonly look towards the USA and Cuba as the only options of a governmental structure?
Okay, so he's saying the only options being capitalism and socialism.
Yeah.
I think that Puerto Ricans, not all Puerto Ricans, look at capitalism or socialism as the only option. I think that there are Puerto Ricans that believe in social democracy, and that's a movement. As a matter of fact, the Puerto Rican Independence Party calls itself a social democratic party, which distinguishes it, I believe, from just purely socialism or capitalist. So I think that there's a confusion, in using the term democracy to mean capitalism, and they're not the same thing. So I really couldn't answer the question as to why they would use only those two, but I think that those are the two that are most prevalent, throughout the world. It's a question of you either choose socialism or you choose capitalism. And that's will be coming to a head.
Yeah. George Cabrera, your nephew, he asks, "What do you believe was the young lord's biggest failure and biggest success?"
I often been asked the question about the biggest success, or people say what was the most positive thing that the young lords did, and I've always answered that before the young lords, Puerto Ricans walked with their heads bowed, looking down. After the young lords, they raise their head and they look up. That's the most positive thing. That I think that the most negative thing, find it hard to find any negatives. No. I think the most negative thing is that we did not study the different contradictions that existed between the different classes, between the different nationalities and races in the United States, and the economics of the struggle. And we did not properly explain that to people because we try to educate. We always say the masses, and we did a lot of education of the masses, but I think that in those areas, we failed to properly educate.
Now, moving past the young lord's time, which you said was about 10 years.
No, not really. It wasn't that long. It was maybe about 5 years.
About 5 years. Beyond the young lords and everything that you and the young lords were able to accomplish, what else were you involved with after that? I mean, because we're probably talking mid 30s, so you're still super young. You're a young man once the young lords, once that time was kind of, you know.
The old man of the young lords was young, huh?
Was young, yeah, definitely. I'm 34. I think I'm young. What are some of the things that you took on?
Aspira was one of the things that I got involved in. Okay, and we organized Aspira, and I was with Aspira for about approximately 10 years. Eventually became the chairman of the board at one point. And I decided to get involved in electoral politics. Okay. So that was one of the things that I dedicated time to. And the reason why I decided to get involved in electoral politics, because people were always telling me, "Oh, you guys are making all this noise out there. You're marching and you're demonstrating and you're criticizing the government and you're criticizing the leadership and this and that.
Yes.
And you're criticizing the system. But you never work within the system. So how do you know that the system doesn't work?"
Yes.
And I thought that it was a legitimate question. Okay, that we really had not tried to work, although not completely true. Before I joined the Young Lords, I had been involved in voter education drives and what have you.
Yes.
But not deeply involved.
Yes.
Okay. And I said, well, I guess the only way I'm going to find out if the system really doesn't work or if it works, okay, is if I become involved in the electoral process.
Yes.
Okay. And I decided to do that, so I at one point became a council member, and I sat on the city council for about a year. I ran a number of times, always lost. You hear that, George? I always lost.
George ran a great
race. I ran for a state representative at one point, and I guess I wanted to test also whether what people said and what they said to you on the street, translated to votes on the day of the election, and I found out that wasn't true. That what really wins elections is organization.
Yeah,
you really have to be organized, okay, and it's not really the best candidate that wins all the time. It's the best organized candidate that wins. This is what I think I learned from that process.
Yes.
Okay? But as to whether the system works or not, I'm more convinced than ever that the system does not work. It's Donald Trump is right when he says that the system is rigged.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing is that he doesn't go further and say that he's one of the riggers.
Yes, facts. Yes. No, definitely. Now, aside from other community work and politics and everything, you mentioned earlier that your mother, one of your mother's biggest thing was education. Nobody could take education from you, so educate yourself. How after high school and through college, what kind of education did you do?
Well, after high school, when I went to the old Central High School, which is now City Hall.
Okay,
so I tell people.
Which, by the way, I knew nothing of that until one day Carolyn and I were downtown, and she said, "Oh yeah, my dad graduated from Central when it was here," and I had no idea, and that was Central High School.
Yeah, when I was involved in the electoral policy, I used to tell people I'm the better politician because I graduated from City Hall. but what I did after, and while I was going to high school, which is one of the other things that happened to me, that was that I remember one of the teachers. He was teaching, I think it was accounting or bookkeeping. Okay, I remember him getting up and saying to the class that, and you guys better learn how to do the bookkeeping because you are going to be the bookkeepers and the mechanics and the clerks. I said, wow, what? How exciting! What I got to look forward to. But this is the mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, that certain people, and that included, by the way, white students.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't just. It wasn't Latino at the time. At the time, I was like 1 out of 5, 5 Puerto Rican students at Central High School.
Okay.
But I remember that he said we wouldn't amount to anything. So when I got out of high school, my parents couldn't afford college, and neither could I.
Yeah.
So I had to go to work, and And the only place that would hire me would be a factory. So I went to work in factories. Okay. And then after I left the factories and joined ABCD, I applied for a job with the Commission on Human Rights, the Connecticut State Commission on Human Rights. And I was... they call at that time a human rights specialist, is what the title was. Okay, that led to a promotion to an investigator, which was investigating discrimination complaints. Okay, and
just overall, right?
Yeah,
like all discrimination, not just Puerto Rican or
discrimination based on Connecticut statutes. Okay. So it was really a law enforcement agency, but you're enforcing civil law. Okay. So and it included employment, in different categories under employment and housing.
Yes.
Okay. So we cover race, color, creed, national origin, ancestry, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And while working as an investigator, an opportunity came up through New Hampshire College. New Hampshire College innovated a new program where they gave people a credit for life experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had quite a bit of life experience at that time, dealing with social problems. So I took that opportunity, and they paid for the course. Okay. I had to go full time, a whole day, every other weekend. Okay, Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. I would have to travel to Hamden, where the school was. Yeah. Okay, and I spent 8 hours each day. The following week, you're off, but you're off because you got to write a ton of papers and read a ton of books. Yeah. Okay, but I thought that it was worth it. At the end of I expected to have to do 2 years of study, but I was able to do it in one. And in 1 year, I got my degree.
Nice.
Okay, I got my bachelor's degree.
Okay.
That was about 10, 15, 20 years after I had graduated from high school. Yeah. Okay. I remember when I graduated, I took the diploma and I sent it to my mother in Puerto Rico. Yeah. And he said, "That's for you." Yeah. Because she had always said that she would want one of her children to go to college. I said, "I did it for you."
That's great.
Now, beyond that, a lot of people have, urged me to go and get a master's. After a while, I said, I don't think I'm going to learn anything more than I already know. Of course, that's not really true. Yeah. Okay, but I was talking about formal education. But as a result of being involved in the political process, I backed Weicker when he ran as an independent for governor. he won, and I was designated the executive assistant to the labor commissioner.
Okay.
So I worked in that position, and in that position, they also had an educational program. Okay, and I attended that. Okay, what's called executive management. I think was the title of the program.
Yeah.
Okay, so I took that, and that gave me, I think it was like something like 6 credit. So I'm about 4 or 5 credits short of a master's, but I haven't bothered to pursue it.
So you are. So now you are. Right now you're. So right now you're about 4 or 5 credits away from a master's.
Away from a master's, but I've been like that for years, and I haven't done anything about getting a master's. I don't.
And you're probably not.
I don't know. I thought about it at times, but I asked myself, what would it mean? Would it add anything to my understanding of the way that things are around the world? And I have, I guess, a critical view. Academia, maybe.
Yeah.
So, but I see the merit of getting the degrees. You know, you need that paper.
No, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
If I not have, I tell my friends, if I had not had the paper, okay, I would not have been appointed to the executive assistant position in the labor department.
No, definitely. Now within all the different jobs, you know, the different employment positions that you held throughout your life, you know, everything from those ones you mentioned, you know, all the different organizations you help, you know, come up and help build. Being a professor at Housatonic, just the different jobs that you held.
Adjunct
professor. Which one of those kind of meant the most to you? Which one of those do you look back at and it's the one that kind of stands out to you? Whether it was in an employment position or an organization that you helped create.
You know, I've asked myself that questions a lot of times. You know, what was the best? And I've always said that the best work that I ever did was when we organized the rent strike.
Okay. That's the one that hits the most. Because
we really did our work.
Okay.
We did what we had to do. We prepared the people. You know, that's why when I got arrested, there was a riot in front of the office where about 1,000 people showed up. And that kind of was like a signal that people had listened to our message, that we had spent about 4 or 5 months going to every organization, every meeting that you could think of that was important in the city to talk about the rent strike and why we were having it.
Yes.
To it. That time, we really did educate the masses.
Yes.
They were educated and they came out.
Definitely. I want to, is there anything that you want to read? Because I just want to probably give some shout outs before we.
Well, Edwin said, when I was 14 years old, I looked up to this man. The young lords were our voice. People came together and stood up for something and demanded change, not just during elections.
That's Edwin Rivera?
Mm-hmm. Respect from Elena. Yeah, there's a lot of comments.
I just want to give some shout outs. I could a lot of the comments, people are having conversations within the comments.
Yeah, they are. Can I ask you a question?
Well, you know, one of the things that you got to remember, and it's important to understand, is that during all these years that we're talking about,
yes,
you know, at the beginning when we started organizing and holding demonstrations and filing lawsuits, by the way, you know, so the struggle was held from different angles and different utilizing different sources. Okay?
Yes.
So we used the courts when we needed to. We did the demonstrations when we needed to. In Bridgeport, there was one police officer who was Puerto Rican. One. And this is not too long ago.
Yeah.
Okay? talk about 20, 25 years ago, one police officer, okay? And he hardly spoke Spanish. That's probably why they mistook him for something else. But, there were no firemen in the fire department. Okay?
That were Puerto Rican.
That was no Puerto Ricans or no Latinos at all. Okay, but no Puerto Ricans in the fire department. And I'll tell you another funny story. We called a meeting with the fire chief to discuss the fact that why weren't they hiring any Puerto Ricans? And the fire chief, his name was Gleason. I still remember. Okay? The fire chief says, "Well, Puerto Ricans don't meet the height standards. They had a height standard then that you had to be, I think it was 5'8" or 5'10".
Yeah.
Most Puerto Ricans at that time really were not that tall. Okay. But they were people that were 5'8" and 5'10". But when the meeting concluded and we didn't reach any agreement, okay, someone said, "Let's go and let's take a picture with the chief." So we went to take a picture with the chief. They took the picture, and somebody looked at the people that were in the line for the picture, and somebody noticed that the chief was the smallest of the whole group, including all the Puerto Ricans, And somebody asked him, "How tall are you?" He says, 5'4". And everybody started laughing. I said, "Okay, now we know what the real practices are." Okay,
Exactly.
But that's what actually happened, in the city. By the way, there were no bilingual programs. There were no teachers. Hardly any teachers. Part of a suit that we filed through the Puerto Rican Coalition, we sued the school system and we won. And one of the remedies that was ordered by the judge was that the city in its hiring practices, when they were going to hire 3 people, one would be Latino, one would be Black, and one would be white, until they reach parity.
Wow.
And that was instituted in the city of Bridgeport for a long time.
Yeah.
So, all of these things were going on, all of the struggles and housing and employment. Okay, and employment at one time, I don't know whether you remember Ray Besta's Manhattan was a factory in Stratford. Okay, and they manufactured, they dealt with asbestos. Okay, now asbestos is dangerous to your health, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows that now, right?
Yeah.
But way back then, it was one of the best paying jobs that you could get, in the Bridgeport area. Okay, and they wouldn't hire Puerto Ricans. We had a demonstration. Okay, and another riot broke out, and as a matter of fact, no, this one was right after the big riot on East Main Street.
Yeah.
The following week, they called a meeting at UB with the Puerto Rican leadership, okay, to discuss ways that we could get Puerto Ricans to work at Ray Besta's Manhattan. Okay, and of course we were not included in the leadership, but we went to the meeting anyway.
Yeah, of course. I think Reagan, you had a question.
Yeah. Okay, so how did you handle so much hate from higher status people every day? Is there anything that you thought that got you through those days that you felt like you just wanted to give up and give in?
Well, I'll tell you what my first feeling was and that was when I was young. Okay, I was 12, 13, 14, and I was going to Roseville School. And a lot of times I thought about picking up a knife and going in and stabbing somebody. I became that angry. Okay, thought better of it. Luckily.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and I grew out of that, but that's the first thought. The other thing was that understanding that a lot of the hatred and a lot of the viciousness, that other groups that were in the majority take against immigrants, migrants, minorities of all kinds, comes out of fear and ignorance. A lot of it comes out of that. So when you realize that, you understand that you don't only need to educate your own people because they lack the true historical reality of the Puerto Rican community, but that non-Puerto Ricans also lack understanding of the Puerto Rican community. So, on the fact that we're a colony, I've always maintained that makes people in the majority in the United States look at us as less than. If they're a colony, it must be, and they can't be their own country, it must be because they lack something, And it's, because of the way that Puerto Ricans were portrayed in the press, okay, television, movies, okay, but in the press, when the United States first invaded Puerto Rico in 1898, and I always say invaded because Puerto Rico was not part of the Spanish-American War. The United States just walked in and took it. But the newspapers, and I have a collection of those cartoons, okay? The newspapers in Boston and New York and Los Angeles, okay, had cartoons of Puerto Ricans, and they have Puerto Ricans dressed like pygmies, with bones, stuck in their head, and hardly dressed. Okay, that was the cartoons that were shown to the American public in the United States. So what do you think? If you're, you live in the Midwest, and you're white, and you see, oh wow, they must be really backward.
Yeah.
They must be really backward, and I don't know if you notice today, every time somebody commits a crime, okay, it's a Mexican.
Yeah.
Okay. When the Puerto Ricans first came to Bridgeport, every time somebody committed a crime, it was a Puerto Rican. No matter whether it was Cuban, Dominican, Central American, South American, as long as he had a Spanish-sounding name or he spoke Spanish, he was, if he committed a crime, Puerto Rican, right? Identified as Puerto Rican. One of the problems that we struggle with and fought with the police department, okay, to begin to do away with those practices.
Yeah. Now, to kind of
does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was.
You sure? If you're not.
Are you satisfied?
Yeah.
Now,
it's not easy, okay, because you can get carried away by hate, and I learned from one of Puerto Rico's, probably, or in my opinion, the greatest Puerto Rican that we've had so far, Pedro Albizu Campos, who was the head of the Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico, persecuted by the United States and eventually killed. Okay. Now he said that hate makes you stupid. That was his message to his followers, okay, and to the Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico. Okay, he says, hate makes you stupid. You don't do things out of hate, you do things out of love. So I learned that what I was doing not because of the hate that I felt when someone disrespected me or denigrated me. It was that I'm still doing what I'm doing because I love people.
And so
That's
to kind
very
of bring it all in, what is Willie Matos doing now today?
Willie Matos is trying to recover from feeble-mindedness. Well, Willie Matos is retired.
Okay.
Willie Matos goes whenever he can to Puerto Rico and spends the winters over there.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to escape this one, but it came kind of early.
Yeah.
But Willie Matos always liked to read, and Willie Matos reads, and Willie Matos writes poetry.
Okay.
You know, and something that I always liked. You know, so once in a while, Willie Matos gets invited to give talks at different places, and I do so, and I have spoken to the kids in high school and in Luis Munoz Marine School, you know, about the importance of being involved, the importance of persevering, the importance of education, the importance of analyzing and then taking action.
Yes.
So that's
what
a
you're doing these days.
A little bit of that, but
Yes.
a little bit of everything, but not as much as I used to.
Yes.
Because Willie Matos doesn't move as fast any longer.
Definitely. Well, we're getting towards the end of the show now. I want to go ahead and again thank everybody who's watching. Some people have been tuning in the whole time. Thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate all of your support here at Top Station. Willie Matos appreciates you watching and listening. As we get towards the end of the show, I have a few questions that I ask all of my guests. Just kind of not aligned with what we're talking about. Just kind of off topic stuff, just to kind of bring things in a little bit, right? But before we do that. I like to, in this particular program, I like to ask my guests to, if they would like to, give the audience your best advice for the youth today. With this program, what I want to do is I want to be able to uplift and showcase great people who have been doing good things for the community, like yourself, right? But I want to try to use it to hopefully inspire the youth to do similar things, or to hopefully inspire them to want to do something. Period, you know? And so I would like for you to maybe give any youth that may be watching or listening your best piece of advice.
Okay. First of all, stay away from drugs. Because if you get caught in that vice, you know, you're not going to be able to do anything else that I'm going to speak about.
Yeah.
Second of all, you need to understand that there were people that came before you. Some of the people that came before you maybe did not have the educational background, the ability. They did not have computers or other sources of learning that you have today. Most of them were probably blocked from learning. Okay? Learning is the greatest gift that anyone can have. You know, like my mother used to say, what you learn, no one can take away from you. Your knowledge, your understanding, no one can take away from you. You need to, I think, accept the fact that we are part of a community. Wherever you live, you're part of a community, and we're part of a nation. We're part of a world, okay? And there are different things that are impacting and affecting communities, you know, such as water that has been polluted, air that has been polluted, you know, health care that is not being adequately addressed, a whole bunch of issues, you know, that you are part of. You know, you're going to be impacted by those issues. Okay. It's your turn to analyze, learn, have a plan of action, and take action. Okay. And like my mother said again, más hace el que quiere que el que puede. And I think I gave the translation before.
No, you did. You did. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Just 2 questions. The first question, what's your favorite dish?
Wow.
Favorite dish?
I have so many favorites.
Oh my God.
But really, arroz con pollo y habichuelas.
And who makes it the best?
I do.
Wait, so
my wife.
Do you cook at home or your wife cooks?
My wife makes it great.
She makes
my
it.
Wife.
Do you both cook?
I cook occasionally.
Okay.
I don't cook a whole lot because every time I start cooking, she starts criticizing me and telling me how to do it.
Oh man. Does Carolyn like your cooking or her cooking?
Well, I don't think that Carolyn has tasted my cooking for a while. You know, they've been kidding me about that. You know, Jeffrey has been kidding me about making pasteles because I tell him that I make the best pasteles in the world.
Is that right?
And he says, "Yeah, but I want to taste them."
I was actually telling Reagan about pasteles because she never had them. I told her they're great. Okay, and the last question is your favorite song.
My favorite song. Wow.
There's probably a lot of songs.
Well, I have again so many favorites, but I have one I'll give you one in Spanish and one in English.
There you go.
Okay?
That works.
So in English, it's The Impossible Dream.
Okay. Bye.
I really don't know who wrote it. Okay.
Yeah.
But do you know the song?
I don't. Do you?
I don't actually know who wrote it. Is it an older classic?
Who?
Is it a classic song?
Yes. It's gonna play in Broadway.
Okay.
You know, it's based on Don Quixote.
Don Quixote.
Or
Okay.
Don Quixote.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a song about struggle, and you know, and in Spanish, it's Soñando con Puerto Rico.
Beautiful. Yes. Yes. That's it. I mean, I don't know. You have anything else?
No.
I
just wanted to say one last thing. I think that
Man of La Mancha.
I know that we cover a lot of ground.
Yes.
But it's so important, and I urge everyone to try to learn your true history. It's critical for Puerto Ricans because I think that, especially for the Puerto Rican leadership, because I don't think that you can lead anyone unless you know what their history as a people is. And it's got to be the true history. It can't be the history that they want you to believe. Okay? You got to be open-minded. Today, there's a ton of information out there through the internet concerning Puerto Rican history. And we barely touch upon it here tonight, but we have 10 shows on just the Jones Act that's coming to a lot of discussion lately. And people don't know that there's not just one Jones Act, there's two different ones. And they both have negative impact on Puerto Ricans, and they both have something to do with why Puerto Ricans are in the United States today.
Yes.
Okay, in my opinion. Okay, and I, as I was looking at the two Jones Act, one is the one that gave us citizenship and other things. Okay, and of course made us subject to the military draft.
Yes.
So I say that we played that was a tax, a blood tax, and there's the one that has to do with the merchant marines and how goods get transported. That's has been received a lot of attention lately. Okay, but just to mention a couple of examples of the things that need to be understood, so that we can understand how to better organize our communities, because I think that's key.
Yes.
To be able, you can't organize someone around a Puerto Rican issue if they don't believe that they're important as Puerto Ricans.
Yeah.
So they got to be able to walk with their head up.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Well, let me see. Yeah, people agree. Elena Padin says, Willie, te quiero mucho. I'm so grateful my path got the opportunity to cross yours. That's Elena Padin. And Alma Maya says, absolutely. If you don't know your history, you can't determine your future. And I guess at this point, I want to thank everybody who's been watching, who's been tuning in. Ramon Peralta, Carolyn, Anthony, Janelle Todd, Ricardo, Mikey Paz, D. Just everybody who's been watching. Thank you so much for watching. We do appreciate the support. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure something out, because obviously one sit down is not long enough to be able to really get into, to really dig deep into the things that we would want to. But I guess that's something that we talk about at a later date. But in any event, thanks to everybody who's watching. Thank you, Reagan, for your help today. Willie, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
And thank you for the opportunity to express my views.
Yes, no, definitely. I'm honored to have you here.
I hope you do one on the history of Puerto Rico.
I'm sorry?
I hope you do one on the true history of Puerto Rico.
We should put something together. Yeah, I'll sit down.
When you limit it to one particular subject.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I guess
we covered a lot of ground tonight.
Yeah, well, because I wanted kind of people to really get to know you and a lot of things that you've done. It will be difficult to kind of just focus in on one thing. But it's something that we could probably do in the future, and kind of maybe have more of a special on just the history of Puerto Rico as opposed to the history of Willie Matos per se. And I think that's something that we could probably do. We could talk about and make it happen. But in any event, thank you so much for coming. I do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yes.